Dive into the topic of emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence, also known as EQ, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage both our own emotions and the emotions of others. It involves skills such as empathy, communication, and self regulation. Emotional intelligence is important for building strong relationships, both in our personal and professional lives. It allows us to understand the emotions of others, communicate effectively, and handle conflicts in a constructive manner. Another aspect of emotional intelligence is the ability to regulate our own emotions. This means being able to manage and control our reactions to different situations rather than reacting impulsively or letting our emotions get the better of us. It involves learning how to recognize and understand our own emotional triggers, as well as developing coping strategies for managing stress and strong emotions. Emotional intelligence also involves being able to adapt our responses to different situations and recognizing when it's necessary to express our emotions and when it's better to hold them in. It's difficult to say that one emotion is inherently better or worse than another one, as they all have their purpose and can be experienced in a range of contexts and situations. Emotions, whether positive or negative, are simply natural responses to events and situations. Some emotions may be more pleasurable or enjoyable than others, such as happiness or joy, but they can also be more difficult or uncomfortable, like sadness or anger. Each emotion serves a purpose in helping us to process and respond to our environment and experiences. Therefore, it's not about labeling one emotion as better than another, but rather understanding and managing them effectively. It's not really possible or healthy to expect yourself to be happy all the time. Emotions are a natural part of life, and they naturally fluctuate depending on various factors such as our experiences, environment, and relationships. Rather than aiming to be always a happy person, it's more realistic and healthy to strive for emotional balance and overall well-being. This means accepting and experiencing a range of emotions, both positive and negative, and developing healthy coping mechanisms to manage them. Instead of suppressing negative emotions, the focus should be on understanding them and finding ways to address and work through them. While it's definitely nice to be happy, it's not realistic to expect to feel that way all the time. Negative emotions are a part of life just as much as positive ones, and it's important to acknowledge and accept them, rather than trying to avoid or suppress them. It's also worth noting that trying to force ourselves to be happy all the time can actually lead to more stress and frustration, which ultimately can make us feel even more unhappy. So instead of trying to constantly be happy, I'd say it's better to strive for contentment and overall emotional well-being. While having clear goals and objectives can help us to stay focused and motivated, it's also important to be flexible and realistic about our expectations. Life can be unpredictable, and things don't always go as planned. Having a positive mindset and a willingness to adapt and persevere can make a big difference in reaching our goals. But it's important to also recognize that it's okay to experience setbacks or challenges along the way. Balance and flexibility are key to navigating life's ups and downs and staying true to our goals. While it is true that setting goals and working hard to achieve them can lead to success and happy moments, it's important to recognize that there are other factors outside of our control that can impact our emotional well-being. It's also worth noting that being happy all the time is not a realistic or sustainable goal for most people. Life is full of ups and downs, and experiencing a range of emotions is a normal and natural part of being human. Instead of striving to be a happy person, it's more productive to focus on developing healthy coping mechanisms and strategies to manage and process difficult emotions. The term realistic simply refers to being pragmatic and grounded in reality, recognizing the constraints and limitations we face and making decisions based on that understanding. It doesn't necessarily mean giving up on your goals or desires, but rather it means taking a practical approach to achieving them. For example, if you set a goal to become a professional athlete and you have no prior experience or natural talent for sports, it would not be realistic to expect to compete at the highest level. Instead, a realistic goal might be to focus on improving your skills and abilities through training and practice, and setting achievable milestones along the way. It's understandable to feel frustrated when people dismiss your goals as unrealistic, especially if they are important to you. It's important to remember that sometimes people may express their own doubts or insecurities when they tell you to be realistic. This does not necessarily mean that your goals are unattainable, but rather it may be a reflection of their own fears or limited perspectives. Instead of letting it bring you down, use it as motivation to prove them wrong. Yes, you're right. The concept of realism can vary from person to person depending on their beliefs, values, and experiences. What one person may consider a realistic goal or expectation may differ greatly from another person's interpretation of realistic. That's why it's important to have a clear understanding of your own goals and expectations, and to not be too easily swayed by the opinions of others. Sure, here's a summary of our conversation today. 1. We discussed the importance of emotional intelligence, which involves recognizing, understanding, and managing both our own emotions and the emotions of others. 2. We talked about emotional regulation and its role in emotional intelligence, including the ability to manage and control our emotions rather than acting impulsively. 3. We addressed the idea of striving for emotional balance and overall well-being instead of trying to always be a happy person. 4. We also touched on the subjectivity of what is considered realistic and how this can vary from person to person.